Welcome. I'm not sure where I put this right now. It is snowing outside. You can't see that all very well. But it is a beautiful early January snowy day here. And I am... What am I doing? I am, I'm doing some year-end and beginning of the year kind of stuff. Oh, that's nice. There's a mirror back there so I can kind of spot where I am on the camera over there. This is kind of just a hangout thing, and I don't expect anyone to really watch it, but so that's my year calendar. That's for 2026. I've been doing this for several years. This was an idea that I got from Sam Ovens, who's an entrepreneur. Internet entrepreneur, pretty well known. Regarded as a very successful entrepreneur. I've got some I'm putting everything I'm doing, this whole video, through different filters. I was maybe putting some of what I was saying about Sam through filters about myself. I don't really want to keep talking in the direction I'm going, but self-judgment stuff. Sam was, he was an earlier student of the same entrepreneur program I went through called The Foundation, which was started by Dane Maxwell and Andy Drish. And the Foundation was a mentorship community and program, entrepreneur program. It was kind of marketed around creating software as a service, as it was called, as a way into entrepreneurship and into passive income, ultimately, eventually. But its greater point was really about, it wasn't necessarily just about software. Really what they tried to teach us was a new mindset towards the world and towards money and wealth and towards business. Sorry, like I said, kind of many different filters going on in my mind right now. So this is really good. This actually feels really good, as much as I'm maybe mentally a little slow right now and maybe publicly putting things through different filters and internal judgments that have gone over time, in particular self-judgments. This is really good. This feels really good to do. This is cathartic and feels like progress. So anyways, the Foundation, so Sam was I think he was in the first or second year of the Foundation. And I came along in the 2015 class, I think it was. I think it was March till October. It might have been October till March. So it might have been 2014 into 15, or it might have just been 2015 I don't think that it was 2015 to 2016. It was 2015. It was March into October. I remember. Anyway, so this is a long intro, but if this ever finds the right person, I'm sure it'll be good and worthwhile. So yeah, so I have these calendars. This was an idea from Sam Ovens. Hopefully you'll understand who that is and my connection at this point. So he taught this. I remember in some of his videos. He was a few years ahead of me, and I remember coming across some of his content. He got into digital marketing consultation. That's really where he built his business. He's now created something called School. It's a different matter. But he talked about how he tries to plan his whole year ahead, and he gets a calendar like this. He was talking about actually printing them out, but whatever, it's the same thing. This is one used, I bought this on Amazon. And so for several years I've been doing this. This goes back to 2020. And again, there's the filter. You might not have noticed it, but I felt it. I felt the emotion of the filters coming up about do I want to talk about what's in these calendars? No, not really. Not particularly, not right now. I think I have some that go back further than this. Hold on a second, or skip ahead, whatever. Let me find, oh look. Flashlight. Oh look, I found my snake. Well, I did not find, what didn't I find? I did not find any more calendars. Oh, I'm not in frame. I did not find any more calendars. What I did find was 2 old containers of windshield wiper fluid down to negative 25 and a negative 35 degrees. And another, what was it? And also Rain X de-icer spray container. Man, who knows how old those are? Do we want to see how old those are just for fun? You can skip ahead. You don't have to click away. My goodness. Doing videos is anxiety producing like that, because it's all about, nobody has an attention span anymore. You got to get people's attention in the first 2 seconds and keep it the whole time, and it's exhausting. And I studied marketing, and obviously, well, maybe not obviously, I was in an entrepreneur program 10 years ago, and done entrepreneurial things and studied that along with marketing and blah blah blah. But my point is it's exhausting to be to have those things in your mind. Nobody has an attention span anymore, or at least the people that, the human beings that watch stuff online or use social media don't have an attention span, so you better get in, keep it. I think part of it's more about how much we try and consume. If we're only trying to consume a video or 2 a day, if we're only trying to take in 30 minutes or an hour a day of internet content or social media altogether, then we won't have as much problem. The problem is there's such oversaturation of it, and so it's like there's such an oversaturation of it, so people are over inundated with it, and then for the people trying to create it, it's like you just have to, dial in all this stuff, and it's just a race to the bottom ultimately. So part of what I'm doing, this is my personal reflection and share, part of what I'm doing recently is just putting stuff out there, more kind of for myself and for the right person, if the right person ever were to find it. And that's it, because trying to optimize everything from go, like when you're starting, is exhausting. It's way too much, and I'm probably kind of predisposed to that sort of perfectionism to begin with. And the thing about perfectionism is it can hold you back. It can keep you from ever getting to where you could have gotten if you just didn't have the perfectionism or didn't let it hold you back. So, is there glass on the ground? Plastic, okay. Plastic on the ground. So, I'm trying to look at things more, and what I create and put online, I'm trying to look at more in terms of, like, this is our little world, this is my little world where I create and stuff, and we don't have to be privy to everything that's happening online. You just find what fits for you, and you create what you have to create. So anyways, what was I getting at with all this? I will try and zone it back in. I know I'm all over the place here, but this is real, and hopefully it doesn't feel like just a waste of time, because what I am doing here is kind of tackling a bunch of things, a bunch of cleanup, and a bunch of New Year's stuff all at once. So I guess I could say at this point, several years ago, Andy Drish, who I mentioned, he was one of the two founders of the foundation. He would do a process. It was the New Year vision process. And he would review the previous year, and then he would look into his next year, create the vision for his next year. And I did this process. He would do this online for a few years, and I would do the process. And so I would kind of put that in tandem with this calendar thing, which was, again, from Sam Ovens. And sometimes I think it all became too cumbersome. But that's not the point right now. So I would do that process that Andy would do, but Andy hasn't done that online for several years, and I've thought about doing it. In fact, back when he was doing online, I think the last year or two, I tried to invite people to it. And the thing is, this is me being personal and very human. A lot of the things I've done in my life, including that process, and including entrepreneurship and online entrepreneurship in particular, were all felt very personal to me. And I tend to be a private person, which has its pros and its cons, of course. It's difficult to get out there and make something in the world when you are so private and so enjoy just keeping things to yourself and in your own world. And I think part of it was like, once you really get real like that and talk about what you're doing, you can't kind of hide anymore. You can't hide anymore. You can't like try and fit into some sort of persona that you want the world to see or whatnot as much. I suppose people do that, where what they put out kind of creates a persona, and they do it, consciously. But it's just once you put yourself out there and once you're honest about yourself and things become real in a different way. Not necessarily bad, but a lot of my life I was trying to, I don't want to go into the details of this or whatnot, but I was trying to kind of keep things under wrap, and yeah, and I always valued anonymity and privacy. I was never a person who wanted, like, the fame and status. It's not what I cared about. When people talk about fame and riches, I was never interested in that. I see value both in riches and in fame. I see how they can be valuable, but I never wanted them for, like, how do I be just direct? I never wanted them for the superficial reasons. I never wanted fame for the sake of, like, being famous. To be famous because, for good reason, for something of value, for giving value to the world, that's fine, that's wonderful, and it's actually good, because the fame then sort of distributes or feeds the value to the world. And and the same thing with riches or wealth. I never really cared for riches for the sake of, I don't know, some superficial reason of, like, oh, that sounds cool or whatever. It was always like, can that benefit life? How can it benefit my life and the life of others? That's what I care about. Being honest. I'm going to be honest and authentic. That's what I care about. It's not that I don't care about my own life. I do. I care about the value of my own life. I care about the profundity of the life I live and experience. Totally. That's why I care about those things mentioned and other things in life. And I also care about that for the world, for the collective, for other people. Even people that I don't like all the time. I'm trying to be a little silly, but I'm also being a little blunt with my wording. I care about that even for people that, I have trouble with, or that I don't agree with, or that whose behavior or actions or whatever are disagreeable to me or frustrating to me. Let's not hold back too much. But it's kind of intimidating in a way, doing something like this. It's very real, and I think it's important, but it's also like, well, now it's real. So, what was I getting at with all of this? Part of how I'm taking all of this is, like, there's no wrong way to do it, because I've had a lot of self-judgment in my life, and I find that the more that I put off doing things I want to do, the more self-judgment occurs. It's just what happens in the mind. I don't take it so personally. Fortunately, I guess I have done spiritual practice and have been spiritually predisposed to things that I'm able to step back from the personal aspect of it. But yeah, so I'm taking this like there's no wrong way to do it. This is like, hang out and chill with Ian. Hang out and do end of the year and New Year stuff with Ian and discussion with Ian. So keep on flipping the flashlight in hopes that it's gonna help spark an idea, put me back on the next proper train of thought, like a light bulb going off, So my point is, Andy Drish used to do this process, this end of the year, New Year process, end of the year review, New Year vision process. And in the last couple of years, he did it. I started to send online invitations out to it. And oh my goodness, I could talk a couple different ways about that. For one, I found a lot of people just didn't do it. And I think about Andy, this is a worthwhile sidetrack. I think about Andy and I think about Sam Ovens both doing it. And Sam Ovens would talk about how, like, it would cost him $15 or something to print out the calendar. And he said something like, $15 to have a calendar for the full year, to be able to plan out your whole year, that seems like really inexpensive to me. This guy's a successful entrepreneur that's made millions of dollars. So yeah, $15 probably isn't much, but obviously, maybe worthwhile insight to take. And then Andy Drish as well has been a successful entrepreneur. And again, he does a process where he reviews the last year and does a vision of the new year. And if I really wanted to catch attention, I probably would have said this earlier. And that's that I think he learned this process from a billionaire mentor of his. I don't recall if that's accurate or not. But I know he had a billionaire couple mentor that influenced him. I think it influenced him with that process in some way. I don't know. He might have been doing that process before he knew them. But the point is, once again, might be insightful, might be a good idea to do. I'm going to be honest, I've struggled with it over the years. Andy said something that really helped me one year, which was he said, sometimes the progress doesn't show up how you expect it to, but it's almost always there. He said something along those lines. And that was helpful, because when you're looking for a particular sort of progress and you don't see it materialize or don't see it actualize, it's very disheartening. It can be very disheartening. And of course, it can make you ask questions like, what am I doing wrong? What's wrong with me? Things like that. And so I think what I've seen in my years was that I saw much more internal progress than I did external progress. I started on the whole path to for material progress, to be a successful entrepreneur, to make to become financially free, I would say, and things like that. And well, I've made some money in my own businesses and things. I can't admit that, but really, to be honest, most of the progress I've seen has been more internal, more spiritual. And I can admit that I've struggled with that. I think I've fallen back at times personally with that because I didn't see more external change or whatnot. I don't know. This is all the narrative that I'm telling at the moment. Judgment. So, what all was to try and get back here. With Andy not doing that process, I've considered leading that process. And I considered leading that process this year. I considered doing it online and leading it. But the reality is that my process has kind of broken down and changed over the years. And this is kind of what it looks like. This is kind of what it looks like this year. There's a calendar. There's 1, 2, 3 calendars, 4 calendars. Another calendar. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 calendars. Sorry for the wonkiness. Looking over here because I can see in the mirror over there. This is what it looks like. I pulled these calendars out from my closet, took a quick look at them, and then I was looking at other stuff on my computer that helped me reflect on the last few years. I won't go into that more right now, but I was looking on some things from the computer about record that I've kept of things and progress of things in the last few years. I was looking at 2024, which was a real change of year for me, and I was looking at it in some ways it was really progress, in some personal ways it was really progress. And I went back to a day job with the help of some people, family that I'll leave unnamed because I don't know if they want to be named. And I went and kind of got my finances back in order, which they really hadn't been. I had gotten into entrepreneurship, but when I got into entrepreneurship, I was a 20-year-old broke 20-year-old. I was a broke 20-year-old, broke 20 or 21-year-old. And I was trying to do things from nothing. And enough said on that. And I worked some jobs over the years, whatever, but 2024 really was like a reset, and it was challenging, and it was a challenging job. It was a very physical job, demanding. I wouldn't want to relive that year or all of it, but I made some real progress, I guess, financially and personally, and probably relationally as well. So, I don't want to say too much here, because I've learned that I do better to just do rather than to talk about the things I'm going to do or want to do. But I'd like to come into this new year similar to how I did in 2024, without doing the same things, without I'd like to come in with that energy though, with like, okay, in 2025 was, well, my mother has told me, don't think she would mind me saying, my mother has told me that I've really done a lot in 2025, and I appreciate that. Um, I don't think I want to go into all that right now. I was at my job. Oh, I want to speak about some of it. I want to put some of it on, lay some of it on the table. I was at my job. I left my job around the half-year mark or so, or a little after. I'd been there a year and a half. I did some home maintenance and did a bathroom remodel that was well overdue, and other home maintenance. Tried to help family with some recent changes that they have had, and done some other things to, what am I trying to say? Did some other new things to try and move me forward and towards things I more want to be doing. It was really kind of a bumpy year in some ways. Personally, it was bumpy in some ways. But how honest should I be? Though I like to seem as though I'm totally at ease, always, the truth is I do experience human emotions and I do feel overwhelmed and things like that. I have essentially given up the perfectionist idea that at some point you come to some level of spiritual transcendence or enlightenment where you just can't feel overwhelmed. Despite the spiritual experiences I have had and the spiritual practices, research, study that I have done, I still feel human emotions, including the negative ones or the ones we don't like as much. And quite frankly, I guess if we expect to feel joy and bliss, ecstasy, those high spiritual experiences and emotions, I think we have to understand that with that also, the more stressful or negative ones also are part of experience. So it seems to me that it's much more about, Krishna says something in the Bhagavad Gita about I'm not going to recall the exact words. See, that's the perfectionist in me coming out, expecting someone to expect me to remember the exact words. But he says, treat both joy and sorrow alike, and move forward. Do your duty. Do your dharma. And Gautama Siddhartha, the Buddha, spoke about not clinging to anything in your experience, including states of consciousness, and that would include emotions. So sorrow, great heights of joy and peace and ecstasy and bliss. Of course, we want those things. We want to incorporate those things into our experience more, but don't cling to them. Don't get attached, because it'll make the crash worse. And it'll create all sorts of things like, what's wrong with me? What's going on wrong? What did I do wrong? Whatever else. So you learn how to let the human experience be in your experience. The aim is more to be in awareness or pure consciousness. I know I just said that the Buddha said not to cling to anything, not anything you experience, including states of consciousness. What does that mean? Is that different than what I'm referring to as pure consciousness? I don't know. That's not the point right now. The point is, if you can be in this sort of observational point of view, if you can be in awareness itself, then all things flow through that awareness. All experience flows through that awareness. And then all the emotions, all the states of consciousness, or whatever, all the feelings, sensations, all the thoughts can flow through that space of awareness. And you can remain in the awareness, aware of all of that, feeling all of it, without getting too attached to all of it, without it tugging you personally one way or the other more than is necessary. And that is freedom. That's where liberation, where spiritual liberation is. It's not to become numb. It's not to numb yourself to the human experience. It's to be able to kind of zone out, to zoom out, to rest into awareness, where it can all happen. Enough of that, because that is deep stuff, and I can feel it. It takes some energy, and I already had a full day. Already used a lot of energy, and here we are. What are we doing? I think I said what I had to say. Like I said, I was thinking about doing this providing like an online guidance of this process. Maybe it's a good idea. I mean, I could do it at any point in the year, really. You can do it at a quarter year, half year, whatever. But this is what my process looks like. And Andy's process looks like, let's sit down, let's put aside 2 hours and let's sit down, let's meditate, let's go through these different processes. And ironically, despite my predisposition to meditation and all of that, my process more looks like looks like this, and looks like going for walks and going for drives and exploring and reflecting. I think that Andy said at some point, I think he said that he has taken like a weekend to do the process before. or at least to think about things, to reflect on things before coming and sitting down to do the, actual written section of it. I think that it's not something you can really force. That's the important thing. You have to let your mind work on it. Whether that looks like a 2 hour session where you cut whatever 2 hour session out and you sit and you reflect and blah 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 blah, or if it looks like a weekend or whatever it might be. I think the longer it becomes, it gets to a point where it's kind of just floats out into everything, and that seems to be kind of difficult to me to do it because it's like just an open loop thing that never kind of ends. And of course, you're supposed to. It's good to come back and to review things, to see where you're at, to be able to get back on path, see how you're doing. Are you on the path? Are you doing well? Do you need to get back on path? Are there things you wish to change? Whatever the deal. So it has to be fluid enough that your mind, your